Have you ever looked at the person sleeping next to you and realized you don't actually know them anymore? Like one day they're your whole world, and the next day they feel like a complete stranger wearing a familiar face? Because that exact moment changed my life forever, and what I discovered after that almost destroyed him in ways he never saw coming. Everyone thought I was living the dream, the house in the suburbs, the matching holiday pajamas, the Christmas card smiles that screamed, perfect marriage. My husband, Mark, was the guy everyone trusted, hardworking, reliable, the man who brought flowers for no reason and kissed my forehead before work, the kind of man other women said they wished they married, and I believed it too. I believed every word, every promise, every I love you whispered before bed. But here's the thing, nobody tells you perfect lives don't crack loudly, they crack quietly. It started with something so small. I almost ignored it, a detail so tiny. It felt stupid to question, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Mark stopped humming. That sounds ridiculous. I know, but he always hummed while making coffee every single morning for 12 years, and suddenly, silence. Then came the phone, always face down, always on silent, always within arm's reach, like it was a life support machine. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself marriage gets boring sometimes. I told myself not to become that woman, but your gut doesn't lie. It whispers before it screams. Christmas was coming fast. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon, lights everywhere, plans everywhere, and Mark was suddenly working late a lot one night. I asked casually, no accusation, no tension, just curiosity. Hey, why are you home so late these days? He didn't even look up, just shrugged, said work was busy, said you're in pressure, said I was overthinking, and that's when the crack went in, because he used my name, not babe, not love, my actual name. That might sound small, but when someone switches language, something's off. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every weird moment like a broken record. The missed calls, the sudden gym obsession, the cologne he never wore before, so I did something I had never done in my entire marriage. I checked his laptop. I wasn't snooping at first, I swear. I just wanted reassurance. I wanted to feel stupid for doubting him. But reassurance never came. There was a folder on the desktop, hidden in plain sight, named Taxes 2022, and let me tell you something important. Cheaters love boring folder names. My heart started pounding, my hand shook. I laughed nervously and told myself I was insane. I clicked it. Inside were receipts, hotel bookings, flight confirmations, and screenshots of conversations that made my stomach drop. But here's the twist nobody expects. The messages weren't romantic, they weren't sexy, they were calculated, cold, transactional. That's when I realized this wasn't some midlife crisis fling. This was something organized, planned, repeated. And then I saw the dates, Christmas dates, anniversary dates, dates when he told me he was working late. My chest felt like it collapsed inward. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't cry. I just stared at the screen in shock, and then I saw the last file, a spreadsheet, names, amounts, transfers. When it hit me like a freight train, this wasn't just cheating, this was betrayal on a whole different level. My husband wasn't just lying to me, he was funding a second life. 5 closed the laptop slowly, carefully, like it might explode. And I sat there in the dark, surrounded by Christmas lights, realizing the man I married didn't exist anymore. Or maybe he never did. That night, I didn't confront him, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I smiled. Because the moment you stop reacting is the moment you start winning. And while Mark slept peacefully upstairs, thinking he was untouchable, I made a decision. That would change everything. I would not expose him yet, I would not warn him, I would let him think he got away with it, because the best revenge doesn't rush. It waits. And what I found next would prove that cheating was the smallest of his crimes. Because the next morning, when I finally confronted him, he didn't apologize. He laughed, he called me crazy, and that's when the real nightmare began. Why is it that when liars get caught, they don't panic first, they get angry, they get offended, they flip the script and make you feel insane for even asking questions? The next morning felt fake, like I woke up inside someone else's life. Mark kissed me goodbye like always, grabbed his coffee like always, said love you like nothing was wrong. I waited until that evening. I wanted to hear him lie to my face. I needed to see how far he'd go. So when he walked in, I kept it light to light. Hey, quick question, I said. Why are there hotel charges on our card from last month? He froze for half a second, just half, but I saw it. Then he laughed. Actually, I laughed. Oh, my God. He said, you're checking statements now. And there it was, the pivot. He didn't answer the question. He attacked the questioner. I told him calmly I found the folder. I watched his face carefully, waiting for guilt, waiting for fear. Instead, I got rage. He called me dramatic. He said I was spiraling. He said stress was making me imagine things. He said I needed help. Help! 12 years of marriage, and suddenly I was unstable. He said the folder was work-related. He said spreadsheets didn't mean anything. He said I invaded his privacy. He said real wives don't snoop. That word stuck with me, real wives. So I did what every underestimated woman does. I nodded. I apologized. I played small. I told him he was right. I told him I was embarrassed. I told him I'd been watching too many true crime videos. And the relief on his face was instant, like a criminal realizing the cop bought the story. That night, he slept like a baby and I didn't sleep at all. Because here's the truth. Gaslighting only works on people who stop asking questions, and I was just getting started. The next day, after he left for work, I went deep, not emotional, strategic. I checked email backups, cloud storage, old devices shoved in drawers on. That's when I found the burner email. No profile photo, no name, just receipts, hotel confirmations under fake initials, ride shares at midnight, and calendar invites, labeled meet client, but clients don't send heart emojis. Then I found something worse. A shared document accessed, weekly updated monthly. It was a budget, a second budget, money pulled from our joint account. Small amounts, just enough to avoid suspicion. Groceries here, gas there, cash withdrawals I never made. I added it up, tens of thousands of dollars. That money was supposed to be our future, our retirement, our safety net. Instead, it was financing someone else's life fund. Then came the part that made my hands go numb. Names, multiple names, not one woman, several. This wasn't an affair, this was a system. That's when the emotional shock hit. The disbelief, the humiliation, the quiet rage that burns instead of explodes. I wanted to scream, I wanted to throw things, I wanted answers, but screaming would have warned him. So instead, I smiled more, I laughed louder, I became the easiest wife on earth. I cooked his favorite meals, I complimented him, I asked about his work, and the guilt never came. He soaked it in. That's when I realized something terrifying. Didn't feel bad, he felt smart. So here's my question for you watching right now. Have you ever snooped on a partner and found something you can't unsee? Because once you cross that line, there's no going back. One night, while he showered, his phone buzzed just once. I didn't grab it. I didn't need tooth and nail on. The notification said everything. Can't wait for Christmas. Christmas, the holiday. We were hosting the dinner. Everyone was coming to that. When the final piece snapped into place. This wasn't just cheating or money. This was timing, planning, disrespect layered on disrespect. But I knew then that confronting him again would be pointless. Liars don't confess when cornered. They confess when exposed. And exposure requires precision. So the next morning, while Mark bragged about a promotion opportunity, I made a phone call, then another, and by the end of that week, I learned the truth that changed the entire game. The accounts, the hidden transfers, the lies, they weren't just immoral, they were illegal. And suddenly, cheating was the least of his problems. Because when I realized what I was actually sitting on, I stopped feeling heartbroken. I felt powerful. And that's when I decided not to destroy him emotionally. I decided to destroy him legally. Have you ever noticed how silence scares guilty people more than screaming ever could? Because when you stop reacting, they start imagining their own downfall. Once I knew what he'd done, something inside me went calm. Not weak calm, dangerous calm. I stopped crying in the shower. I stopped replaying memories. I stopped asking why, because why doesn't matter when. What matters more. The first call I made wasn't to my best friend. It wasn't to my sister. It was to a lawyer, a quiet one, the kind who listens more than they talk. I sat in a parking lot during my lunch break and told her everything. The folder, the spreadsheets, the secret accounts, the burner email. She didn't gasp, she didn't judge, she just paused. Then she said one sentence that changed everything. Do not confront him again. That's when I realized this wasn't just a marriage ending, this was a chess match. Over the next 2 weeks I became an actress, the loving wife, the trusting partner, the woman who believed every landmark, loved it. He relaxed, he got sloppy, he left tabs open, he reused passwords. He bragged about how stressful work was. Meanwhile, I copied everything. Screenshots, PDFs, timestamps. I learned how money moves, how accounts hide, how paper trails tell the truth. People won't. Lawyer helped me open a separate account. Quietly, legally, I secured what I was allowed to secure. Nothing illegal, nothing suspicious. Just protection. I've met with a financial advisor next, then another attorney, then a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. Not because I was broken, but because I refused to break. Every meeting, added a layer to the plan. Every document added weight, and the craziest part, Mark thought things were better than ever. He brought me flowers again, he joked more, he even planned a Christmas dinner at our house. A big one, family, friends, co-workers. The irony almost made me laugh, because he picked the date himself. December 24th, Christmas Eve, the night everyone would be together. The night no one would forget. That's when the plan locked in. He circled the date on my calendar, not in red and black, because this wasn't anger. This was execution. I practiced my voice in the mirror, calm, controlled, unemotional. I imagined his face when the truth landed. I imagined the silence afterward. And still, I treated him like nothing was wrong. I wrapped his gifts. I laughed at his jokes. I listened to him complain about crazy people at work. Crazy. He had no idea I had already handed his life to professionals. He had no idea I had already won. The final confirmation came 3 days before Christmas. The lawyer called me and said the words I was waiting for. We're ready. Everything was documented. Everything was legal. Everything was airtight. All that was left was timing. And the timing was perfect. Because on Christmas Eve, with the table set and the guests arriving, Mark was about to realize something terrifying. The woman he underestimated had been planning his downfall in silence. Have you ever watched a narcissist panic when they realize the room is no longer on their side? Because that panic is louder than any confession. Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in fake smiles and sharp knives hidden behind laughter. The house was glowing, candles lit, music playing, everything looked perfect from the outside. Mark was in his element, hosting, laughing, pouring drinks like the king of the castle. The family filled the living room. Friends crowded the kitchen even. A few of his co-workers showed up. And that part mattered. A lot. He watched him from across the room, so confident, so relaxed, so unaware. The man really thought he'd won. Dinner started smoothly, turkey passed wine, poured jokes, flying end. Then Mark stood up. He tapped his glass and smiled. Said he wanted to make a toast. A toast. He thanked everyone for coming, talked about family loyalty, gratitude. I almost laughed out loud. When he finished, he reached for my hand, squeezed it, looked at me like I was his biggest accomplishment. That's when I stood up. The room went quiet, not dramatic quiet, curiously quiet. I smiled, calm, polite. I actually have something to share too, I said. Mark's smile twitched just slightly. I thanked everyone for being there. I said Christmas was about truth and clarity. I said secrets have a way of surfacing eventually. That's when I saw it. Fear. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope, not thick, not flashy, just heavy with consequences. I handed the first copy to Mark. He frowned, confused. Then I handed copies to his brother and his boss. That's when the color drained from his face. He whispered my name, not angry, not annoyed, terrified. The room buzzed with confusion. Folks paused. Midri spoke slowly, clearly. I explained the hidden accounts, the burner emails, the financial deception. No insults, no yelling, just facts. I watched him shake his head, muttering that I was lying, that I was unstable. Then his boss stood up, asked one simple question: is this true? Mark didn't answer. Silence hit the room like a bomb. That's when his brother spoke, angry, disappointed. The guests started murmuring. Phones came out. Eyes widened. Mark looked at me like I'd betrayed him. The irony. Then he tried one last move. He laughed, said it was a misunderstanding, said I was emotional. When I slid the final document across the table, the official one stamped, signed, the one that proved everything, he reached for it with shaking hands, read the first line, and sat down hard. The man who controlled every room just lost all control. I leaned in close and whispered, "Merry Christmas." The room erupted. Questions, shock whispers. His boss left immediately. His brother wouldn't look at him. And Mark couldn't even speak. On a scale from 1 to 10, how petty was that move? Be honest. But wait, because that wasn't the end. As guests slowly left and the house emptied, Mark tried to corner me. Tears now, begging, now. He said we could fix it. He said it was just money. He said I ruined him. That's when I told him the part I hadn't shared yet, the part that sealed everything. Because what Mark didn't realize was this. The consequences didn't end at that dinner table. They were just getting started. Does revenge actually heal you, or does it just finally let you breathe again? After the guests left, the house felt hollow, like the walls knew something had died inside them. Mark stood in the kitchen, pacing, hands shaking, voice cracking. He kept saying my name like it was a life raft, like if he said it enough times, I'd save him. He said I embarrassed him. He said I went too far. He said I destroyed his career over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. But when I told him the truth, I'd been holding back the part that made his knees buckle. I told him the lawyer had already filed. I told him the financial institutions were already notified. I told him his company was launching an internal audit. I told him one more thing. I told him I already moved out. Everything that mattered to me, closed documents, sentimental items, everything except him. That's when the panic hit full force, not fake tears, real fear. He dropped into a chair like the weight of his lies finally crushed him. He begged. Actually begged. Said he'd change, said he'd cut everyone off, said he didn't know why he did it. But here's the thing nobody warned you about. When the mask falls, you don't feel rage anymore, you feel clarity. I didn't hate him at that moment. I didn't love him either. I felt free. I told him I was done speaking, that any future communication would go through attorneys. And I walked upstairs to sleep in the guest room, the same guest room he'd avoided. For years the next morning, I woke up early, packed my last bag, left my keys on the counter. He didn't wake up. That felt poetic. The fallout was brutal and fast. His job suspended him, pending investigation, then terminated him. Friends stopped calling. Family distanced themselves. The women vanished. Funny how loyalty works when the money dries up. He tried reaching out for months, emails, texts, voicemails. He blocked them all. Meanwhile, my life started quietly improving, not flashy at first, just peaceful. I moved into a smaller place, less stuff, more light. I slept better, I laughed more, I stopped second-guessing myself. Therapy helped, not to forgive him, but to forgive myself for ignoring the signs. Months later, the divorce finalized, assets divided, justice served. Mark showed up, thinner or older, hollow. He tried one last time, asked if we could talk. I looked at him and realized something wild. He was a chapter, not the story. I said no, politely. I walked away without looking back. Now here's where it really hits. A year later, I hosted Christmas again. Different house, different people, different energy. No lies, no secrets, no fear, just peace. And sometimes, late at night, I think about that woman I used to be, the one who doubted herself, the one who felt crazy. I wish I could hug her and tell her this. Trust your gut. Silence is power, and justice doesn't always shout. So let me ask you this. Do you believe in forgiveness, or do you believe in consequences? If this story taught me anything, it's this. Walking away isn't losing. It's winning quietly. And if you want more real stories where betrayal meets justice, hit subscribe right now. Because the next one might sound a little too familiar.